Your paycheck hits at 9.3 inches the morning. For about 12 seconds, you feel rich. $4,200 after taxes. After working late, after answering emails you pretended not to see, after sitting in traffic 5 days a week, and then rent comes out. $2,100. Half your paycheck disappears before lunch. You have not bought groceries. You have not paid utilities. You have not filled your gas tank. You have not touched your credit card bill, but half the money is already gone. And this is the part nobody tells you about rent. Rent does not just take your money, it takes your choices. It decides where you live, how much risk you can take, how fast you can save, how long you stay in a job you hate, and whether one emergency becomes an inconvenience or a financial disaster. This is your life if rent eats half your paycheck. At first, it does not feel that bad. You tell yourself everyone pays rent, everyone has bills, everyone complains about housing, and technically, you are right. But your situation is different. You are not just paying for a place to sleep. You are starting every month with half your income already missing. Imagine your paycheck as a pie. Before you get a single bite, your landlord takes half. Then utilities take a slice. Internet takes a slice. Your phone bill takes a slice. Transportation takes a slice. Insurance takes a slice. Groceries take a much bigger slice than they used to. By the time you are done paying for the basics, there is barely anything left. And this is how the trap begins. Not with a dramatic mistake, not with a luxury car, not with a shopping addiction. It begins with one fixed cost that is too large. Because when rent is too high, every other decision becomes smaller. You do not ask, what do I want to do this month? You ask, what can I afford after rent? That is a very different life. For decades, financial advice said you should spend no more than 30% of your income on housing. If you make $4,000 a month, rent should be around $1,200. That rule was never perfect. But it gave people breathing room. Room to save. Room to invest. Room to handle emergencies. Room to make mistakes without ruining their entire month. But when rent becomes 40%, life gets tighter. You still function. You still pay bills. But saving becomes inconsistent. One month, you save $300. The next month, your car needs repairs, and that savings disappears. At 50%, life changes completely. You are not budgeting anymore. You are defending yourself. Every grocery trip feels too expensive. Every dinner invitation becomes a calculation. Every small repair feels personal. Every subscription looks suspicious. Every unexpected bill feels like an attack. And the worst part is that from the outside, your life still looks normal. You have an apartment. You have a job. You have furniture. You have Wi-Fi. But financially, you are walking on a floor made of glass. So why not just move somewhere cheaper? That is what people say when they have never actually had to do it. Because cheaper rent usually comes with a price. Maybe the cheaper apartment is farther from work, so now your rent goes down by $300, but your commute goes up by 90 minutes a day. You save money, but lose your life. Maybe the cheaper neighborhood has fewer job opportunities. Maybe it has worse public transportation. Maybe it is less safe. Maybe it means leaving your friends, your family, your network, your doctor, your entire routine. Or maybe moving itself costs thousands of dollars. First month's rent, last month's rent, security deposit, application fees, moving truck, new furniture, time off work. Escaping high rent requires money, which is exactly what high rent prevents you from saving. That is the cruel design of the rent trap. The people who most need to move often have the least ability to move. So they stay, not because they are lazy, not because they love overpaying, not because they are bad with money. They stay because every exit has a price tag. When rent eats half your paycheck, the damage is not limited to this month. It quietly steals from your future. Let's say you should be saving $600 a month, but because your rent is too high, you only save $100. That is $500 missing every month. $6,000 a year. Over 5 years, that is $30,000 before investment growth. That could have been an emergency fund, a down payment, a business, a career change, a year of retirement contributions, or the gap between staying stuck and having options. But instead, it went to rent. And here is where it gets worse. High rent does not just reduce savings, it increases debt. Because when you do not have a cushion, life does not stop happening. Your tire blows out, your phone breaks, your dentist finds something expensive, your company cuts hours, your rent goes up again. And because your savings are thin, the credit card becomes your emergency fund. At first, it is just $400, then $900, then $2,000, then the minimum payment becomes another monthly bill. And now rent is not the only thing eating your paycheck. Interest joins the table. There is a mental cost to all of this. When housing takes too much of your income, your brain changes. You become careful in a way that does not feel responsible. It feels exhausting. You check your bank account before buying lunch. You avoid opening emails from your utility company. You delay medical appointments. You say no to friends, then feel guilty. You say yes to friends, then feel anxious. This is why high rent is not just a financial problem. It is a freedom problem. A person with low rent and decent savings can make bold moves. They can quit a toxic job. They can move cities. They can start over. They can take a calculated risk. They can wait for a better opportunity. But a person whose rent takes half their paycheck has to be careful. Careful with time, careful with money, careful with choices, careful with dreams. The most dangerous part of the rent trap is that people often make it worse while trying to feel better. You are stressed, so you order food. You are tired from work, so convenience becomes survival. You feel like your whole paycheck goes to bills, so you buy small things to feel human again. A coffee, a shirt, a night out, a delivery order, a weekend escape. And none of these things are the real problem. The coffee did not make you broke. The rent did. But when your fixed costs are too high, even small variable costs become dangerous because there is no margin. That is why personal finance advice can feel insulting here. Someone tells you to cancel subscriptions, but even if you cancel every streaming service, you are still trapped. Someone tells you to stop buying coffee, but the coffee is not $2,100 a month. The truth is simple. When rent is too high, cutting small expenses can help, but it usually cannot solve the root problem. You do not need a slightly better budget. You need more breathing room. So what actually works? There are only a few real paths out. None of them are easy, but they are real. The first option is to lower the housing cost. That might mean getting a roommate, moving farther out, moving to a cheaper city, negotiating rent, downsizing, living with family for a season. This is not glamorous. But sometimes the fastest way to rebuild your life is to accept a temporary version of it that gives you margin. A cheaper apartment can be worth more than a nicer kitchen, because margin is what buys your future back. The second option is to raise income, not in a vague motivational way, in a specific way. Switch jobs, ask for a raise, build a side income, get a certification, move into a higher paying role. Use the expensive city for what it is supposed to provide, opportunity. If you are paying big city rent but not using big city opportunity, you are getting the worst deal possible. The third option is to stop lifestyle upgrades from eating every raise. This is where many people stay trapped. They finally get a raise and immediately upgrade the apartment. Better view, better gym, better neighborhood, better countertops, and suddenly the raise is gone before it ever becomes wealth. If rent already ate half your paycheck once, do not let it eat your raise too. The fourth option is to build a small emergency wall. Not a perfect 6-month fund, just the first wall, $500, then $1,000, then 1 month of expenses. Because the first goal is not to become rich. The first goal is to stop every surprise from becoming debt. At some point, you have to ask a hard question. Is this apartment helping you build the life you want? Or is it quietly delaying it? Because sometimes the apartment is worth it. Maybe it keeps you close to a high-paying job. Maybe it gives you safety. Maybe it protects your time. Maybe it puts you near opportunities you cannot get anywhere else. But sometimes the apartment is just a beautiful cage. It looks good in photos. It impresses people who do not pay your bills. It makes your life feel upgraded. But every month, it takes the money that could have made you free. That is the trade. Rent buys shelter, but too much rent sells your future. If rent eats half your paycheck, you are not automatically irresponsible. You may be living in a broken housing market. You may be early in your career. You may be in a city where opportunity and affordability no longer live in the same place. But you cannot ignore the math, because rent is not like other expenses. You cannot skip it. You cannot pause it. You cannot negotiate with it every month. And you cannot build wealth if your largest bill leaves you with no room to breathe. The goal is not to live in the cheapest place forever. The goal is to make sure your housing cost does not control your entire life. Because once you have margin, everything changes. You can save, you can invest, you can handle emergencies, you can leave bad jobs, you can make choices from strength instead of panic. And that is what financial freedom really starts with. Not $1 million, not a luxury apartment, not looking successful, just enough space between what you earn and what you owe to finally breathe.